Yes guys, welcome to another video. Welcome to the Sunderland vs Stoke match review where we have just been beaten 2-1 against Stoke at home. Our first defeat at the stage mark of the season, albeit in the FA Cup, and it was after extra time as well. Now, before the game, I did see a lot of people say, it's only the FA Cup, I don't really care, and almost actively wanting us out of the Cup. I say this every year, and I say this every time it comes around to sort of cup football or tournament football. I've never had that attitude. Of course, yeah, you make the odd change here and there, but I will never actively want us to lose a game of football. I don't give a shit what competition it is in. I want us to win it, regardless. But we will get into the review, and as you can see on screen, I've put the first team, the lineup for you, and I didn't expect as many changes as Rodgers made. I understand why, but I didn't expect it, given he said in the pre-match presser that he didn't want to change too much, because of course the sort of continuity of our play, our tactics, and our cohesion as a team. He didn't want to meddle with that too much just for a week or just for a weekend, just for one game. But he did make a handful of changes and left out a lot of key players, and going up against a Stoke side that was largely their sort of strongest 11, or one of their strongest 11s. There was only one or two maybe changed, but other than that, it was a very, very strong Stoke 11. But if you have a look at our starting 11, we had more change for Patterson, Hume a right back, you had Hjelde making his first start of the season at centre back with O'Nien, Alessi coming in at left back, Neil and Harrison Jones coming in for his first start for the club, which I was really, really happy for him. It was really, really nice, away from the negativity that I know is probably going to come in the comments, and I've seen online, there's a lot of negativity after this game. I'm not going to buy into that too much from this game, but what was very, very nice on a side note was seeing 3 academy graduates in the centre of midfield in a competitive game of football. I really, really loved seeing that, and I always will. I'll always vouch for the youth of the squad, and Neil, Jones and Rigg is that sort of midfield trio. That was very, very nice to see, regardless of the end result. Of course, Mayenda, Alshish and Connolly. Mayenda has been playing up top with Isidore in recent weeks. Now he's gone back out wide. Alshish on the left. Connolly, who I think he's only started, 1-2 games this season, and he hasn't even featured off the bench recently over the last good few games. So there was a lot of players there that were there for the sort of first time, and the bench was riddled with... I say riddled with. There was a few quality options on the bench, but we didn't opt to go for that. It was clearly just a case of trying to get a handful of fringe players some game time, or youth team players who haven't had any first team experience yet, trying to get them some game time. So I knew the memo immediately. But we do go into the game, and again, that wasn't any excuse for anything necessarily, I suppose. But getting into the game straight away, it was a pretty calamitous 5-10 minutes opening, and we were shocking in that opening 5-10 minutes. Just defence just seemed a little bit all over the place, and the goal, which of course was a penalty by Tom Cannon, but the way we give it away, how anyone is blaming Luke O'Nien for this, by the way, is beyond me. It's just someone who wants to kick him whilst he's down and loves a scapegoat. That isn't his fault at all. So we have the ball on the left-hand side. Alessi's trying to bring it forward, and then he gives it on to Alshish. They're really squeezing us, really pressing us in that sort of left-back position. And then Alshish is forced to go back, but he nicely plays it into Dan Neil. Then he's forced to go back. But then from a really tight area on that left-back position, he's pinged it. He's just smashed the ball towards Moore in goal between the sticks. He's almost like neck high. So Moore's had to chest it, and then he's getting pressed by the Stoke man. So he's had to play a ball around his man who's pressing him to try and find O'Nien, but he's doing it in really tight quarters. Luke O'Nien tries to turn out. Obviously, he has no time to do it at all. So there's no real... there's clearly not a shout either. There's a man who's coming in right in behind him. So as he's outstretched for the ball, he's taking out the Stoke man. It's a Stonewall penalty, but what Dan Neil is doing in the first place, smashing it at the keeper and at that height and in that area, and it was really unnecessary. You could argue for each case, like, why doesn't Moore just pump it away? He's clearly just really strictly and religiously sticking to the memo of we can't hoof it out as a keeper, it has to be played out from the back. But then Neil put him in that position. You might say O'Nien could have just lashed at the ball, but there was no shout for him. Like I said, it was just a calamitous 5-10 minutes, and that was sort of 3-4 minutes in the game. Tom Cannon sets up and he puts the ball straight down the middle. But like I said, after about 5-10 minutes, as much as everyone was spewing that it was utter shit, and don't get me wrong, it was a scrappy game. It wasn't a quality affair. But the first half, regardless, it was actually, it eventually became relatively even. Both sides making sort of half chances without creating too much. But it was very much an even affair. It was competitive. It wasn't as calamitous as the opening 5-10, as I say. The one real weak link for me in that first half, and he did improve, don't get me wrong, was Connolly. As Mayenda had a really difficult sort of 10-15 minutes in the opening game. He just kept on, opening 10-15 minutes of the game. Mayenda was just running straight into danger, giving the ball away really easily. Alshish a little bit the same on the left-hand side. But then, like I said, we did get into it. But Connolly, for me, he was just this lone figure who he didn't really contribute much. His press wasn't fantastic either. But the game sort of just fizzled out at a half-time anyway. And it did seem a little bit more even. So I thought, right, okay, we don't have the best of sides on the pitch right now, but we're starting to move a little bit. We're starting to make little half chances. Alshish is coming in from left to right. Mayenda, who struggled originally from the start, he's starting to cause problems. But we just had that weak link up top where nothing was really happening for Connolly, and it was just totally anonymous. But then second half comes out. First sort of 5-10, it was more of the same. But then changes started to happen, and he weren't just throwing on all of our best players, not at all. Alessi, sadly, again, went off injured, on a stretcher, so it looks really, really bad. This lad, he has a streak of 4 or 5 games and then he's out. I think he's a good player, he's a good defender, but sadly, he's just made of paper mache. Do you know what I mean? The lad is just, he's so injury prone, and he's made a good interception when he's outstretched. He just seems to have gone over on himself. I don't know whether it's going to be a break. It did not look nice at all. But then he comes off, and then to be fair to Hjelde, I think he had a decent game. I don't think he was particularly poor, but Hjelde got pushed over to left back, and Zach Johnson come on. Of course, the youth team player, should I say? He came on and sat in alongside Luke O'Nien. And I think he did really well for large parts. I think once, maybe twice, he gave the ball away. But largely, he stepped in quite well at times. He defended quite well, shielded the ball well. I didn't think he was that bad. But then we did see Samid. I keep saying Samid. I believe a lot of commentators, and so the commentator and others have been saying Samed. It might be Samed, and I've been saying Samid this whole time. But Samed did come on. And what happened then as well, when Samed come on, Dan Neil moved forward a little bit. So of course we usually have that trio in a game. Saying that in the league, you would usually have a Dan Neil as an anchor, and then you'd have Job and Rig a little bit further forward, but either side of Neil. Neil pushed forward into one of those roles, a little bit further forward, and Samed sat. And originally I thought he looked really decent. He looked really sharp on the ball. He was getting it, and I felt like Dan Neil looked a little bit lost. Like he's been used to the anchor role for so long that he didn't really know what to do now he's further forward. And I don't think he looked great. He didn't look fantastic. Like I said, he looked very uncomfortable on the ball, and off the ball he just kind of looked a little bit lost. He looked like a lost sheep, and looked like he was clamouring to get back into that position that Samed had taken over in. But also Alexic come on as well, and within a minute or so we got the equaliser, and it was Alexic as well who got it. We break forward, it's a lovely ball, interchanging football. Alexic makes the run sort of in behind, and it gets slid in towards him, and it looked originally the ball kind of got stuck under his feet, but he's managed to fashion himself into an angle to put it into the far corner. So 1-1, buzzing, game on. We still have a really disjointed squad here, really disjointed team, but we are starting to play football. And for the rest of that second half, we actually looked fantastic, in my opinion, making plenty of chances. And Connolly, who, like I said, had a really quiet first half, he forced himself into the game. His press became apparent. He was really running them ragged at times. He was coming deep if he needed to, pressing them, nicking the ball off them. He was fashioning chances for himself, like he might have back to goal, no one really helping. He'd just take a yard away from a defender and then ping it towards goal. And granted, a lot of them were very hopeful, either straight at the keeper or miles wide, but he was still contributing. He was making the effort, and there was a lot of press and a lot more effort, which I appreciated, and I did notice. And we were just dominating, and it looked like it was only going to go one way, and we were just piling on the pressure. Then the full-time whistle comes round, and then of course it's extra time, and it just seemed to kill that momentum. And then towards extra time, it was just more scrappy play, but they started to creep back into the game a little bit more. Rusing came on, Ogunsoyi came on for that sort of 5-10 as well. And it was just such a mess of a squad. By the end of the game, we had Dan Neil at centre back, and we had Ogunsoyi, Rusin, and Connolly on the pitch, and it was just a bit of a mess all over the shot. But Samed, he has to take a part of the blame for this. It was a back pass towards Dan Neil, but he's kind of just chipped it in the air with a bit of backspin, and it's kind of sold Neil a little bit short. And as he tried to put his foot on the ball and make the original connection, Ennis nicks in front of Dan Neil. He goes 3-1-1 with the keeper. You could maybe argue that Moore has overcommit a bit too early, gone to ground, and then he's gone round the keeper, Ennis, and stuck it into the back of the net with about 3-4 minutes left, or however long was left. And they see the game out 2-1. So yeah, frustrating. I never want to see us lose a game of football. Is it more important than the league? Of course not. I'm not going to be anywhere near as angry as I would be if this was a league game, and there was obviously a lot more experimenting going on in this game. But I don't like losing games of football regardless. It was an interesting game. It was interesting. I'll put it that way. It was interesting because we got to see a little bit of different players. Harrison Jones, I'll say that I think he was okay. I don't think he really put a foot wrong. He looked pretty tidy on the ball. I think he grew into it as the game went on. I think maybe a little bit nervy at first, but then the second half, I think he maybe knew in the back of his mind, I'll be coming off soon or something. But that really it drove him on a little bit, and he was getting on the ball a bit more. He was asking questions of the opposition and pressing them, and he looked decent. But yeah, I just hope, we've just signed Enzo Lefebvre. He's going to be sat in the crowd thinking, what the hell was that? Because it wasn't a pretty game to watch. I'm not going to dress it up to be anything other than that. But yeah, 2-1. It was an experiment, a few plays. It was interesting to see. Like I said, I think a lot of people going a bit overboard online and saying it was utter shit. There was a lot of chopping and changing there. I think the system changed about 3 or 4 times throughout the game, and with players that were unfamiliar. You've got players who haven't played at all this season, players going back from injury. We had to contend with Alessi getting injured. It was a lot of chopping and changing, and all in all, I don't think it was utter garbage. It was just slight garbage. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so let me know in the comments down below how you felt about that game. I could have a totally different attitude to you guys. I'm not coming away from that game thinking absolute dross. Do you know what I mean? Like some have. I will quickly to apologise, by the way. I know a lot of you guys, or some of you guys, were expecting a live stream today from me of this game, but sadly, the streaming services that I generally use to watch the game myself, they weren't available, and the only stream I did have wasn't the best quality, and I could only get it on my phone as opposed to a desktop on a screen. So it would have been a terrible live stream of me just being on my phone like this and then occasionally speaking to you guys. It would have looked absolutely shocking. But yeah, so that is everything, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and hit the like button for me. Come on, I mean, we're going to go back to league action. It's gonna be better next week. Don't worry, guys. We'll be right back at it. Well, at least I hope that is going to be the case anyway against Burnley. Get our first string players, back in there. Isidore, Roberts, Mepham and the like. Patterson back in goal. We will, and then Job as well on the pitch. There's loads. It's a good handful. It's not all negativity now. We can now focus on the league. Like I said, I never wanted us to lose this game, but now we can solely focus on the league, which is the most important thing. So yeah, that'll be it, guys. If you've enjoyed, hit the like button for me. It'd be massively, massively appreciated. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already to become a fully fledged member of the Sarny Army. But for now, take care. Stay jammy. Away the lads.